the European Championships of Jam. Next, we go to the World Cup of Jam, where we'll have a whole week of the dance. But it's going to be sick. So just waiting on Yossy. Again, I keep repeating, I'm very, very tired, so I may just find myself chatting shit. And I'm sorry if I do. And I'm not even looking at the right camera. Like one of those presenters on Match of the Day looking at the wrong camera. Okay, getting better. Cool. We'll be kicking off really shortly. So just waiting on Yossy to join us. Don't think she's in yet. Let me check my email in case she sent a panicked email. Right, so I saw Yossy. I might need to make Yossy a presenter. There she is. Oh no. So theoretically, Yossy, you hopefully, if you can hear me, should be able to unmute your mic and stick your camera on. I guess we'll find out very shortly if she is able to do that.
Hopefully you can hear me and see me.
I can hear you and I can see you.
Amazing. Hiya. Sorry, my laptop's a little bit laggy today.
Yeah, no worries.
No worries.
That is
Ooh,
kind of crazy
that
because I
is kind of
talk and then
crazy because I talk and then
we'll just work with it,
we'll just
Yossy.
work
It'll be
with it, Yossy.
fine.
It'll be fine.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
hearing
I'm hearing
myself
myself
in
in
stereo.
stereo.
Can everybody
Can
at
everybody
home
at home
hear the
hear
weird
the weird
stereo?
stereo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's an
there's
echo,
an
but we'll,
echo, but
we'll we'll get around
we'll
it.
get
How
around it.
are you,
How are you,
Yossy? Are you
Yossy? Are
well?
you well?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's just been a super busy period at work, even
Mm.
today still. So it's just a lot of jumping from one thing to the next, but super exciting at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
totally
I
hear you.
totally hear you.
Good to be
Good
busy
to be
though,
busy
in
though,
many
in
ways.
many ways.
Yeah, very grateful, feeling very blessed, but just trying not to get burnt out and overwhelmed at the same time.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that
I know that
feeling.
feeling.
Um,
Okay,
okay. So,
so
what do you want to
what do you
do?
want
Do
to
you want to
do? Do
get
you want to
straight
get straight
into it?
into it?
Do you want me
Do
to
you
do
want
any
me to
kind
do
of
any kind of
intro? What are you
intro? What are
feeling?
you feeling?
Happy to kind of jump straight into it. I've got a little presentation I've put together, but I just need to double check in terms of whether I don't know if it'd be best for me to maybe share a link. I'm not too sure if my laptop, sorry, can be a little bit funny sometimes with Teams. Um, but maybe I can just stick a link in. I don't know if that would be best, or someone else, maybe if I
Yeah.
send the link and share their screen.
Do you want to
Do you
email
want
me
to
the
email
link
me
and
the
then
link and
I'll?
then I'll?
Sure, I'll just do that real quick. But yeah, happy to do an introduction as well on my own behalf, real quick. Just because I think since the last time we spoke, I've kind of changed around in terms of companies and what I do on the 9 to 5 basis. So I can kind of just run through that with the presentation. 2 seconds.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, this should hopefully come through quite quickly. But that should be sent. But just in the background, in terms of as that link sends, hi, I'm Yossy. In terms of my full name, it's Folly Yosade, but most commonly in terms of the career I've built, I've gone by Yossy for the most part. And in the day, as my 9 to 5, I am currently working as a senior digital account manager at an agency called Apollo Strategic Comms. But outside of the 9 to 5, I am also a photographer and a content creator. So pretty much in all the fields or all the places that include being chronically online, you can find me, and they all kind of blend together to work. So with that, I've kind of just put a small presentation together in terms of basically walking you guys through the different kind of phases and areas, what led to each stage, and just kind of the work I've been able to do. And hopefully it might be insightful to you guys in terms of the choices you're making.
Cool. I'm
Oh,
still
I'm
waiting for
still
the
waiting
email
for
to
the
come
email
through.
to come through.
No problem. Let me double check.
Our thing can be a bit slow.
Thing can be a bit slow.
Let me just double check. If not, I can try share my screen and see if it works. Let me have a go.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes. Let me see if this. It's going to take, sorry, just a second. I don't know if that's sharing. Is that working?
Yes.
Yes.
Success.
Okay,
Success.
perfect. I'm just going to present it real quick. But hi, so yeah, this is me. As mentioned, I'm just going to walk you through. So again, just a few quick slides to kind of walk you through everything. So as mentioned, the current role I kind of working is a senior digital account manager, and outside of that, I do content creating and photography. In terms of my basically from like the area of sixth form forward, I went to University of Essex, and originally I studied psychology as my intention was to go on and be working as a clinical psychologist because I really cared about mental health. Um, Other stages in terms of life, I at one point was a jewelry brand owner, and that did really well. However, it got quite overwhelming to run by myself during university, so I ended up closing that down. And at one point, I was also a blogger and writing for different publications such as Time Out London. But again, kind of shifted and jumped a bit. So you'll find that I'm someone that likes to try a bit of everything, gets to a stage where it does quite well, and then I move on to the next thing. So kind of just juggling a lot of things, but they again have all blended together to get me to the point where I'm at now. And in terms of what I'm doing, I'm currently working on creating my own social media agency and content agency, which kind of wraps in with the photography and all the other bits. So I'll just kind of walk you through my marketing career.
Inequality and
So let me just see
inequality and injustice.
Mute that. So what I do in my 9 to 5, it started with me going to university and, as I mentioned, studying psychology. But during that, once I'd graduated from undergrad, I realized that it would then need me to go on to do my master's and do more studying. And I just wasn't sure if that was for me, as I'm someone that when I apply myself, I can get good grades. But in terms of studying, I just didn't want to do more because, like I said, I'm someone that kind of chops and changes quite easily. And it made me realize that I'd be committing to a long kind of series of doing different degrees and different exams. So from there, I basically realized that I wanted to do more of my blog because I was running my blog and I liked writing, I liked content creating. As I mentioned, I was really online, and it led me to think, okay, well, how can I use these skills that I have and what kind of degree or area kind of lends itself to this? And that's where I discovered marketing. So once I graduated with my 2-1 in psychology, I realized that there's kind of links with emotional behavior and marketing and how the consumer thinks, and I could blend the two together and be quite happy. So I started with an internship at a company called Reboot Digital, where I basically learned the basics of digital marketing. So a lot of what I did was putting together press releases for different clients we had and sending them out to journalists. So when you think of magazines and you see crazy headlines, for example, one of them being like 72% of people don't shower daily, things like that, where they've done all of these crazy surveys with people. That's what our company would do. We would find topics that relate to our clients. So, for example, that was for a shower company. And then we would think of interesting things that we could ask the general public or get people to kind of talk about, which we then knew would go into press and they would be likely to pick up. So it was a lot of link building and was a lot of fun, and essentially basically is what got me started in my career. And as of now, in terms of the company I work at, one of my main clients is Chegg, which I guess you guys being in education and school would know, potentially know. But they're a big company based on, and they offer services which help students in terms of learning. And we just wrapped a massive campaign where we have a global student prize where students like yourselves or students at different ages, you can be a mature student too, who are change makers, so doing amazing things around the world, where we've had students that are refugees or students that have built things that are helping with the environment or teaching other kids about period poverty and creating products to help, or providing educational tools and lessons to students that may live in areas where there's no schools. We basically put together this prize to offer one student a chance to win $100,000. And what we do is we get loads of applications in, we look for students, we push out these ads and run the social media to help gain traction to kind of get students aware that this prize exists. Then we have a top 50 process where we have 50 finalists and we share all of their stories. And from there, we have a top 10 and we have a winner. And last week, we flew the winner in from India, and it was his first ever time taking a international flight. So it was really amazing, and presented him with a check. And with that, it's just like a lot of great work because you do something where you can see actively where your client is making a difference. So that's the fun side of marketing. And there's so many different roles you can do. So in terms of creating the content, or whether you want to be more on the press side, and again, talking with journalists and getting those pieces of coverage in. So when you see big things happen on the news in terms of getting reporters to share on it, or podcasts, or getting them on the radio, that's a lot of the things that our team does. And again, I've worked with a range of clients. So one of them, again, that you may be more kind of in tune with might be Misguided. We did a lot of work with them. Other companies which may be more so towards your parents' kind of generation would be like Sage, USwitch, FreshBooks, but maybe Knowledge Academy might be one that you know. So that's one where we've worked across. And that pretty much sums up my journey in terms of what I do in terms of the marketing side. Moving on from that, we then have the photography side. So you can see a bit of my work here in the background. And just to kind of give you a bit of context into how this journey became, it again started at university. I found psychology, as fun as it was, I didn't realize there was a lot more to the degree. So in terms of the brain and the science and how the different parts of the brain works, but not only that, there was statistics in it, and maths was not my strong suit. I was someone that was better at English, just because in terms of the creativity, which I guess you guys can see in terms of all the other things I do, just became easy for me. So I started to pick up the camera as a way of having a creative outlet to express myself when I felt really frustrated, or I just felt like my mental health, I just needed a bit of a break. And it started with me kind of using my friends as models, shooting around campus as just a way to pass time. And I found that I had influencers from my blogging era that needed people to help them shoot outfit content. So as well, being in university and not having much money from student finance, it was another way for me to kind of make money without having to have like a proper job on the side. So I got to pick my hours, and it was just a lot more fun for me. I set my own rates. And again, I just found it a lot more fun than the idea of having to maybe do something in terms of like my friends working in Tesco, because I'd applied for those jobs. But again, as so many of us students needed money, it was just a lot harder to land roles. So while selling my jewelry and doing this, I just found it another easy way for me to be like my own boss in that sense. And it was a thing where my parents being parents, were concerned about how it would affect my degree and how much I do my work. So they really tried to push for me to kind of leave my camera at home, and just focus on my studies. And it was a thing of trying to kind of convince them that it's just something fun for me at that time and a way for me to kind of have that outlet, but they didn't understand. But then slowly I started to have breakthroughs where I had some magazines such as Galdem at the time reach out to me, and it was kind of like my first big paid gig. And then from there, they kind of started to realize like, oh, okay, there's something she's doing with this, and it's not just something to kind of distract her from her studies, but maybe a career she's really pursuing. And I think for them, they start to understand that you don't have to go down your stereotypical routes like your lawyers, your doctors, to kind of be able to earn money and do something. So from there, it's kind of where it started to blossom for me. And again, just brought light to what could be if I actually took this a bit more seriously. And through that, I've kind of gone on to work with amazing companies. So this year I shot for Wireless Festival. I got to shoot for all 3 days, which is amazing because, again, it's a festival that I would naturally want to attend myself and buy tickets for, as a lot of the lineup I love. I've gone on to shoot for other magazines such as Crack Magazine, Refinery 29, NSS. I've shot for TFL. During London Fashion Week, I've shot for different designers such as JW Anderson, Tolu Coker, Richard Quinn, and I've shot for other festivals including Cross the Tracks, British Summertime, Hyde Park, and many more. And the great thing about that was a lot of it came from either word of mouth or a lot of these companies seeing me on social media. So through doing my 9 to 5 and working in marketing and learning how to push these companies and market them, I've also learned how to market myself as an individual, which has been great and really useful. So you'll find me on my TikTok, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn as well, all of these platforms pushing myself in terms of my work. And it's just helped me kind of land in the right people. So that's why I kind of wanted to share that full circle moment of how from one journey to another, all of it's kind of built to get me to this point, and has really helped me with basically just kind of becoming one in terms of my creativity. So that's why I always kind of encourage people to try one thing, because you never know how it might push you to the next or open up another door for you. And I think on the next slide as well, I just kind of shared a bit more of my work here so you can see what I've created over these different years. So the first shot was taken during a music festival. And again, through the years, it's been a journey of discovering what I find most important and what I enjoy capturing. And I've gone down the route of more documentary and high fashion editorial. So, again, from simply shooting my friends on campus to kind of building that different kind of set of work. It's been a thing of trying out weddings recently and having fun with that. And I'd say weddings are a great way if you want to make the most money, as well as like shooting e-commerce. But I found it's not where I'm passionate. It's more so the documentary. So again, with Notting Hill Carnival, for example, I've spent the last 3 years attending both days and documenting it, and it's just led to a crazy amount of support. Even the pictures I shared and shot for a client this year ended up getting 8,000 likes, 7,000 likes on Instagram, and it's just that feeling of finding something that you really truly care about and it being well received rather than creating for the sake of creating and it just being nice to look at. So in terms of career, that's pretty much everything in a nutshell in terms of what I do and how I've kind of grown to be on this journey. So I think that's pretty much it on my side. And I just thought I'd leave it to any questions or if there's anything anybody wanted to know more of, I could maybe share. But yeah, that's everything.
Love it. Thank you, Yossy.
Thank you, Yossy.
No problem.
So I'm going to ask you a few things from
ask
some
you a
notes
few
that
things
I
from
made.
some notes that I made.
First thing I wanted to ask you about
is
so you're working as a senior
digital
account
account
manager
manager at the moment.
Yes.
What is that?
What is that, man?
Like, what
Yeah.
does a
What does a
senior
senior
digital account manager do?
do?
Yeah, it's a lot of words. So I don't know if my camera's gone out there or if you can still see me.
I think your camera's
I
gone.
think the camera's gone.
Oh, sorry about that. 2 seconds. I'm not sure what's happened there. Sorry.
Do you wanna
I think that should be.
do you wanna hop off and so I'm just wondering as well, because we have got this big echo.
Didn't know maybe if you drop off
and come back on,
it might be less echoey.
Sure, give me 2 seconds and I'll just refresh.
Awkward silence. Do a little freestyle rapping. Spit some bars. The Simpsons stare. I'm sure she'll be back any moment. Weather's crap now. It's gone into miserable, depressing grey season. Don't like it. We're not going to see the sun again for like 4 months. Going to get depressed. I know, Lou. It's British weather. I've been dealing with it for 44 long years. A little bit, Lucy. I think a little bit. A little bit of the old seasonal depression. Just a less good vibe. I don't know what people like about winter. I think Yossy's struggling to get back in here. Got a bit of a tech glitch. We're just going to need to show patience. Caitlin, don't be so negative. Of course she's coming back. What I always say about my wife, of course she's coming back. I mean, it's been 2 years since she left, but of course she's coming back. I was joking about my wife. We're very happy.
Hi, hoping I should be back. I think everyone's muted for me.
Ah, I'm muted. Hey.
Hi, sorry, hopefully you can hear and see me now.
I can hear and see you. And
Amazing, apologies.
Don't apologise. I think the echo's gone, which is what we all wanted. So yeah, sorry about that awkward moment. We're back in business, guys. So I was just asking you what the hell a senior digital account manager actually is. Like, what do you do?
Yes, so there's literally, it's like a lot of big words, but it's pretty much simple. So in terms of what I do, I'm basically in charge of a bunch of clients that we have. So in terms of that, I lead a team, and at the moment I'm balancing two different clients so one of them I mentioned was Czech, and the second one is a new one called the Global Schools Prize, funnily enough, which lends itself to you guys and what you do, where we are now offering $1 million to a school basically that is doing amazing things for their students actually. So we're in the process of basically doing the whole marketing campaign for them there. And what it is our client will come in with the different services or things that they want to share. We will then look at different ways we can build out campaigns for them and basically share those products or things. And what we do from there is run their social media as part of it. So in terms of growing those followers, building that community, getting that engagement in, but then also whether it's a thing of they want to sell more products, for example, then we will then grow those channels and then include different ways of getting more sales in. So whether it's partnering, for example, with influencers, we'll reach out to influencers with a budget that we're given and allocated and then get that content out. Or we will then create ads as well. So when you're scrolling on Instagram, for example, and on your stories, you see those ads coming in between, we'll be the one setting that up. Or when you're scrolling on YouTube and you have those ads that start at the beginning before you're able to skip, again, we'll be setting that up. So we'll work with our in-house creative team that we have to produce those and liaise with the client in terms of the branding, the messaging, and also that as well, just making sure that it's consistent throughout, building their websites, making sure the key messaging is there. There's pretty much a whole range of things we do. And within our team, we then also have the press team that we liaise with. So in terms of any pictures they may need or content, and just kind of working on the two together to highlight those different things to the client. So with that as well, once we're kind of done rolling out a campaign, we then will create reports for the client. So whether it's on a monthly basis and showing them in terms of the channels, how we've grown them, but then also reporting on the different campaigns we've done. So how it's done in terms of the return of investment, the budget that we spent and how we spent that budget. There's loads of different things. So in a nutshell, helping brands be more seen online, helping them grow their followers, helping them create content is what I do as my role as a senior digital account manager.
Cool. Thank you for that. That helps me understand. So in terms of like a career trajectory, like what might be a typical next step for a senior digital account manager?
Yeah, so next step could potentially be director. So in terms of that, as of recently this year, so this promotion came this year, and it's then led to me now kind of managing people and growing them in terms of the team. So the goal would be to get to a director stage where I've then got the people that are working on my team to the role that I'm currently at, and it'd be more of a hands-off approach. So less having to kind of oversee on things, but more so just making sure that timelines are being met. And with that, then gives me more time to help with pitching to other clients and trying to get other clients in the door for us to help build our roster as a company, because we have a different range of clients that range over different sectors. So from education to more government and policy to NGOs to I think more recently interior design. So that would be my role in terms of helping to kind of grow the company and the business we have, but then also to train people up to the point where they are comfortable leading on client calls. And it would just be, yeah, from a higher point of view in terms of basically signing off any content we're working on, and just more so kind of relaying the information and basically just doing more of the client relationship side of things.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And does it, I guess one of my questions would be like, in the kind of role you're doing, how much, and because I know you're this really creative person and you've got your fingers in a few creative pies within the kind of senior digital account manager role, do you get to explore that creativity? Are you also sort of actively involved in the content creation process, or is it more about dissemination?
So it's a mixture of kind of having the creativity and that freedom to explore to an extent, but then also you have your clients who might be more established. So they'll have their branding and they'll want things done a specific way that works for them, because there's so much pressure in terms of what you put out and how that can then go on to affect them if it's done wrong, and wanting to get the wording and key messaging right. So I'm sure you may have seen there's different companies and brands where they've had an agency put out a campaign and it's just not performed well because it's either been insensitive, or there may have been a lack of diversity, or in terms of the wording, it's just not been right, or in terms of what may be going on the news at the moment, they've just not really thought about how that might perform. So there's an extent to where we are then allowed to use that creative freedom to think about what we may think will work at the time. And sometimes our clients will pitch ideas to them, and we're able to kind of go back and tell them that, one, this might not be the right time. For example, there may be a lot going on in the news and it would be a great time to launch. But then there's also that element of us being able to kind of say, these are the things that we've tried out for clients and they work. But also being able to use that degree I've mentioned of my psychology and emotional psychology, and looking at the different ways in terms of how we can communicate these things to make sure that people, oh, am I all good? Sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry, I just thought I cut out there. I think I'm all good. But what it is basically a matter of sometimes having to make sure that the client can kind of understand from our point of view. So it's sometimes having to prove yourself and get them to understand where you're coming from, because they can be quite set in their mind with how they want things to do. But that's the whole point of having us as an agency, where we have that experience from different clients and from different years and from different things that we've tried out. So it's a matter of just trying to put together a brief or a deck that we can present to them, give them the options, because as well as that, there's a thing of budget coming into it as well. So that also can sometimes determine how much creativity we have. For example, with the idea of using influencers, that can be quite a massive part that takes up your budget. So if the client is willing to spend the money, then it gives us more creative freedom to kind of push, because sometimes they'll want things that are a bit outlandish that will get them the press rather more so than the sales. So something that will kind of really capture the attention of people online. So when you see like for example, massive pop-ups where not necessarily selling the product, but it's getting people talking. So it really depends on what the client's after as well, or whether they want something a bit more traditional that just gets them those sales and those numbers through the doors. Oh, sorry, I think you're on mute.
Well spotted. I just wanted to go back to blogging, because that seemed to kind of almost be your route into all of this, the sort of springboard from which the photography, the marketing, everything's developed. And we have a lot of students who are on creative writing or journalism courses, as well as digital marketing, and even the photographers. The blogging could potentially be really useful to them. So what did you get out of blogging? Why did you do it, and what did it do for you?
Yeah, so it started as a thing where, being a younger sister and having an older sister, she was a blogger first, and it was that thing of wanting to copy everything she did, because I was just like, there's so much opportunity that comes from it from her. And again, being in a space in university where I wanted an outlet for my mental health, a lot of it was more lifestyle content. So more so kind of just documenting the journey, but then also life lessons, and then creatively writing about different things. As again, there was that area where I thought about writing books, but I just thought in terms of what they tell you in school, and sometimes at that point where I could go with journalism, I wasn't too sure where I wanted to explore it. So my blog gave me that outlet to write. But from that, it gave me skills in terms of learning to actually find my voice as a blogger. So in terms of what I find interesting and setting my own tone, because again, with writing, there's so many different people and so many angles you can take, and it's about finding what makes you stand out, so that when publications and all of these places are looking for you, it's something that we could all write the same news story. If we were given a headline and told the details, it's about how you kind of sell that story and how you find what points you take from it that makes it interesting. So that's one thing it really helped me with, just kind of being able to find a story within what I wanted to say and put that out there. But also with that, it helped me grow an audience in terms of people who were actually interested in what I had to say. So it wasn't a matter of just following me on my blog, but they then would come and follow me on my other platforms, which is what helped me kind of build when it came to my photography and sharing all these different things I'm interested in. So as a person that kind of wrote openly about everything rather than quite niche down, where some people might have, for example, if you're doing a journalism course, then it might be more politics that you surround your writing around. But it basically almost was like a CV that I could then take with me to my internship and all of these places. And for example, with me landing the Time Out London gig, where I was able to write from them, and it was actually put in print and they handed it out all around London, through kind of writing on my blog and basically creating this like CV of my own of things that I've done, and showing what I'm capable of and the numbers that I was racking in on my own blog. I was then able to take that and share that with either like with jobs that I was applying to, or outlets that I was pushing my writing to, as a way of wanting to kind of be like a freelance journalist and get some bits on their website, just to kind of build up my name, so that when people would search me, you'd be able to find all the different pieces I've done. So even now, when you search my name, for example, online, you might see that I pop up on Refinery 29 under like a journalist name, or NSS magazine, but it's my photography. But again, it's built that credibility for me and shown that it's like something I'm very passionate about, so that it's not a thing of me saying it, but also showing it in terms of what I do and the efforts I made.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I've got a couple more questions, and then I'm going to sort of go over to the student questions. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, I suppose people sometimes make the distinction between a specialist and a generalist, somebody who, the specialist who kind of really digs into one particular skill set and like puts all their time into developing and that and becoming an absolute expert, a specialist in that. The generalist, someone who's kind of got this wide scope of skills, maybe not to as high a level as the specialist is ever going to have, but you can do a lot of different things. And feels like you fall into that latter camp. You're like, you've got this kind of really wide skill set. So I wanted to just ask you, like, do you ever feel like you should have been more specialist, or overall are you happy with the generalist approach you've taken? And what are the pros and cons of either?
Absolutely. So yes, you're right. I definitely would say I'm more of a generalist, but I think as I'm getting older now and reaching a point where I've been doing marketing, PR, and social since 2019, since I graduated, and then photography since next year will be 10 years. It's where I'm kind of now reevaluating, and I think I'm more pushing towards a specialist and wanting to niche down. However, that's been very beneficial to me to be a generalist. And I'll just talk from the point of view of where there was a point where I wanted to be a photographer full time. And I got made redundant a few years back. So that gave me that chance to kind of see. I've always asked myself, when can I be a photographer full time? When will I take that leap? And for 8 months, I trialed it out. And it was kind of during like that period of post COVID, and just kind of the workforce. So for 8 months, I really tried and I pushed, but I found that okay, actually, being a photographer is not lonely, but I'd say compared to like having a 9 to 5 and working with colleagues, as a photographer, you don't really have colleagues. And it's different from where I'm working in an agency now, and we have clients and we make that effort to kind of go out and get those clients. Whereas photography, it's a thing of you have to push by yourself. You're one person kind of pushing to get these clients. And yes, some people may kind of put you forward for jobs, but if not, if you don't get any work, then you don't get any work. Whereas with my 9 to 5, I turn up for work that day and I know that I've got my work there. And at the end of the month, I know what I'm earning. Whereas with photography, it was more of a, if I get work, I get work. There might be some months that are quiet. So I think pursuing that 9 to 5 and not just going straight into the photography has helped me in that sense of also when there was COVID and if we were in lockdown and you weren't allowed to commute, loads of photographers I knew, basically that was their money gone because obviously they couldn't work. So me having that 9 to 5 and going down that route of my 9 to 5 with my marketing gave me a bit of job security in that sense of there will always be companies and brands that need help with their marketing. There'll always be brands that need help with selling more products, and there will always be, basically it's like a sector that's not really going anywhere. Whereas you have AI now where a lot of jobs, for example, like in supermarkets are going and it's more so machine based. But with the job that we do, yes, there's AI in terms of art and copywriting and things like that. But there's an extent to when people are buying things where they want that human connection and for it to not be touched by AI. And it's the same with photography as well, where you can generate all of these pictures and all of these graphics, but there's a difference in terms of how they make you feel and the detail and like those little things. And for example, when people generate photos and there may be like 6 fingers and those things that take away from enjoying what you're seeing and engaging with. So that's the great thing about like the arts and writing is that those feelings that you kind of produce and bring to people can't be replicated in the same way that AI and these different things do. So again, having all of these skills has helped me be able to kind of bounce from one area to another without really feeling affected. And I think it's now more so that I'm kind of finding the areas I've explored everything and now I know what I like and dislike. And that's the same thing with wanting to kind of build my own agency at some point, is wanting to be able to pick my clients. So where more so you're working at an agency where it's run by someone else, it's great. But there's an element of wanting to kind of have my own clients and pick the kind of services offered. And it's the same with photography, where I've done the wedding stuff, I've done events, and again, great because it could be easy money, but documentary and fashion editorials and telling stories is more so where I'm passionate. So I want to niche down so that those clients then find me rather than doing a bit of everything and I'm not really showing my skills in those areas or growing it. So then those clients and those magazines and that dream of having a spread on Vogue, for example, won't happen because I've just not shown that that's where my specialty and skills are.
So I suppose it's like there's an enormous amount of advantages to being a generalist at first, but as the career goes on, there's a big argument to specialize more to sort of chase those particular dreams and goals. Cool, love it. So two more quickish ones from me. I was going to ask about Galdem. So I know about Galdem, but like I imagine these guys don't, 'cause it's been a little while since Galdem ceased to exist. But it seems like it was this really incredible stepping stone for some young people, for some young women of color, really. You know, yourself. I've worked with Charlie Brinkhurst Cuff before on stuff. like there's just a whole bunch of people of young women of color whose kind of careers were really helped by that. What if you could sort of just give a very brief outline of what Galdem was, but then also what's your take on why it's been so positive for so many people and helped so many people in this sector to make that
Absolutely.
career initially?
Yeah, so Galdem were this amazing, not only I would say online platform, but magazine, because they did print physical copies of their when they had different issues. But they were an online platform, which I guess today a lot of people would say were a bit more outspoken. So depending on where your political views may lay in terms of what groups you may be an ally to or against, they basically were for the people. And where you might have, like, for example, your Sons, your Daily Mails, where they may lean to a certain way, or they may kind of mince their words and kind of pick the sides that may seem more favorable. Galdem were always kind of going against the grain. And that's one thing that I really loved about them. And they were for giving, I'd say, BIPOC people, people of color, a platform. So whether you were a young journalist and you were starting out, or a photographer like me, they were actively seeking people who weren't being given these opportunities from different social class backgrounds, as well as different sexualities, different religions. They were really going out of their way to give young people a chance to help their voices be heard in the arts and creative kind of industry. And for me, again, kind of like I mentioned, they were the first publication to ever reach out to me. And that's where I kind of mentioned where I got that big break, where my parents were finally starting to understand, and they were being able to see that this is actually something real and there's something coming from it. And it was thanks to them. And as you mentioned, Charlie was one of the first people that I was in contact with at Galdem, who really gave me that platform and understood what I wanted to create as a photographer and gave me that chance. So where I mentioned that sometimes it was a bit harder because it's a lot of things to being a photographer in terms of budget, where I not necessarily couldn't afford to do it myself as a student, and to get these models, to pay the makeup artists, I didn't have the connections because I was really new in the industry. They would bring me on for projects that were really representative to what I wanted to shoot. So for example, one of the things being black hair, and the amazing different ways that we can wear our hair, and culture and heritage, and how that plays a part in terms of the styles we do growing up, and how we turn up as ourselves, but also how our hair can be policed in schools and by different people. And they would give me that chance to kind of use my photography to show that in different ways, as well as having a journalist be able to write those words and share their experiences. So really grateful for them. And it's a thing of, you kind of come as you are. There's no kind of having to write what you're told to, because there could be that with a lot of publications where they want you to write it a certain way. So you may write it and you might have a manager that might revise it and be like, we can't say that, we can't do this, we have to be neutral, or we have to appease to these people. Galdem was more of a say it as you want, this is what we're hiring you for, and really trying to work on those budgets. But unfortunately, I think for them, funding was just an issue where, again, I think for being so outspoken, it just didn't lead to enough to keep them running in the long run. But appreciate them for what they did and the opportunities they gave me.
It seems like the team behind that kind of seized the agenda in a way. It was like they didn't want the agenda to be set for them. They were, young women of color talking about their experiences, and they were like, we'll just do that. We'll do it ourselves, which is incredible. But then there were those pressures around advertising, that being that forward-facing thing of those outspoken kind of views. It's kind of really shit that's the case, but it's still, I think it still had a really big cultural impact, so it must be something that was great to have been part of. Last little question from me before I go to the student ones was, you talked about, you get these photos, you get 7,000, 8,000 likes, you feel good about that. Totally understandable. That is good. It's a good feeling. But is there a danger to chasing the likes?
Absolutely. It's a thing of, kind of like I mentioned, where once you see what performs well, it's wanting to kind of keep performing to that level and keeping people happy and satisfied. And it might be a thing where all of a sudden you're not creating for you, you're creating for what people engage with. And that's where you can start to lose yourself as an artist, where you are so focused on wanting things to do well that you don't really think about the stories that you're producing. And that's something that's happened to me for a long time, where a lot of what I do was pretty. I think like aesthetically it looked nice, and I think, okay, I know this one's going to do really well, and it would. But when it came to people asking, okay, so what inspired this, or what's the story behind it, there was nothing I could say, because I hadn't thought that far. I just knew I wanted it to look nice. So it's that thing where you can fall into a trap of also looking at what's trending, and again, kind of starting to emulate others that you see doing well. And then you, like I said, lose yourself as an artist, and you start to blend, and there's nothing that stands out about you. So that's one of the things that I've really had to kind of like pull back from and start to focus on. Why, as a photographer, I am pursuing the things I'm doing? What do I want to shoot? Why am I shooting it? What's my why? What inspires me? And as of recently, it's more that I've been working on my own personal projects. So one of them being one that surrounds motherhood and the dreams that mothers have for their children, and that being inspired by the loss of my auntie and the difference it had on my relationship with my mum, and the honest conversations that then came forward from that. And then wanting to interview women, because you realize that every woman's journey through motherhood and pregnancy, etc., is different, and it could be a difference from religion playing a different part, households, whether it's a single mother, same sex kind of family household. There's so many different things that have an impact on the way people raise their children and the journeys they go through. So wanting to kind of share stories like that and documentary, and then same thing with Notting Hill Carnival, preserving culture and sharing these things as a Black British person, despite it being more of the Caribbean heritage, it's still something that you get to live and experience, and wanting to share that. And then that's what I want to push my focus onto. And same with the editorials, where there's still a story within it, and not just because things are pretty. And even if it doesn't perform well, that's fine. But I find that when I'm able to add words to what I do, it goes down really well. And it's the same with Notting Hill Carnival, where there's that want from Black people to kind of keep restoring that history, where there's things in terms of the government not wanting Notting Hill Carnival to kind of continue because of the violence that they say that it then brings on, etc. But showing the joy and these exchanges people have in the streets, where they're embracing, they're hugging, and showing the love and the good that comes from it. It's what brings me joy as a photographer, and showing that actually it is a positive experience.
Great, love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to get on to some student questions. I know you haven't got an enormous amount of time, and thanks again for giving your time up. So Chris was asking about your favorite form of photography. I suppose you sort of talked about how important documentary is to you. So is that a genre that gets much play on social media? Are people interested in it, or is it a bit of a struggle?
Absolutely. I'd say, especially now with the news, and I guess there being that filter of what journalists share and the way people want to write history, I think documentary photography more than ever is more important in terms of wars and what's going on now, and the brave people there documenting their stories, and sharing actually the real things that are happening in these countries, because it's a difference of what the news channels may tell you to people's lived experiences that are living in those countries right now, reporting from the ground. So I think documentary has been very monumental in terms of giving us stuff we can look back. And even now, I think there's loads that we look back on, especially for me when I'm doing my research into Notting Hill Carnival, and you have all those old pictures that show it then, to those people that are still here with us now that have had those different experiences and changes, where there may be some people that were taken as a kid and now they kind of get to see it through an adult lens, but there's those photos to kind of document it. I think it's been kind of like it's like a beautiful process in terms of kind of being able to see things from start to finish, but also eye-opening. And I think, again, that side of it where the psychology comes in for me, where there's that emotion that those photos can evoke, but also in the style of like weddings as well, where it's less posed and it's more so those exchanges and those little moments where you're a fly on the wall and people don't even notice you're there, but you've been able to capture these things and just bring up these emotions from people. So I think it's definitely a style that's been explored a lot more as of recently, again, because I think of the benefits in terms of news. But I'd say that for me is my favorite, just because, again, I think with that psychology element of just emotions, it's what I've been pushing myself towards more recently.
Great, love it. So Lee asks, what are some of the biggest names you've ever had the pleasure of photographing?
Yes. So as of recently, I mentioned I shot for Wireless, so pretty much 3 days with Drake. And then as well as working with him in that sense of documenting it, there was all the other music artists that were attending. So from Skepta to Jamie to a lot of the rap and grime artists, but also Kaylani, K1, depending if you're really into your music. But then there's also been Nadia Whittam. So in terms of the government and doing that with Galdem, I've got to do that side of things. But it's just been a range of music artists, I'd say mainly for the most part, but then also, as I mentioned, fashion designers. So whether it's like your JW Andersons, which are more known, or your up and coming ones where you've got Richard Quinn and Tolu Coker. And again, there's just been like through that amazing opportunities in terms of models. So your Jordan Dunns, and any other kind of big faces, as well as Naomi Campbell as well, Edward Enninful from Vogue, working with a lot of actors and actresses, one of them being as well, his name's completely escaped me right now, but Zendaya's stylist, with working on him with his book launch. So it's just been like amazing to kind of have access to these people, and just kind of have these conversations and realize they're regular people like you, but also getting to work with them, and just experience them in different capacities.
Cool. So love that. Nye asks, because you're self-employed, have you ever found it difficult to want to work since there isn't anyone else telling you that you need to work?
Yes, literally why I struggled so much with those 8 months where I tried to do it full time, because literally that in terms of having a routine, I can wake up when I want to, depending on if I have a shoot that day. I can tell myself that I'm taking a weekend off, but then it can turn to 2 days of relaxing, 3 days. And again, it's that thing of if I don't push and I just wait for jobs to land in front of me, then I can be sat there with nothing to do. And it's just, I think that's part of what brought me back to a 9 to 5, like in the routine it gives me, because it can be so easy to kind of just fall out of it. But then also start to realize like it takes a lot of self work to kind of basically get the jobs in. So it's a matter of wanting to figure that out, because you can get really high paying jobs and it could be that one you do for the whole month and then you're free and then it's great. But then there can be months where you're having to work loads of little jobs to make up for it, to feel like you've got enough at the end of the month, when I was freelancing full time.
Love it. Thank you. Really useful. Shay asks, what social media do you recommend? What works best for you to push your work out there?
At the moment, I'd say TikTok. I'll just share a quick story in terms of Apple. So there was a trend on TikTok that I decided to join, just because it's quite easy, where it was showing the top 10 iPhone pictures you've taken. Shared it on a whim, literally closed my phone, came back, and I think at this point it's currently on 2.7 million views. And with that came someone seeing it and sending it to their friend that works at Apple in UK. And because I have my email in my bio, the person reached out from Apple. We set up a call. I introduced myself to them. And basically, with the launch of the iPhone 17, they invited me to their headquarters in London a few weeks ago, where they basically let me demo the products, brought me in and a few other content creators. And I got to walk away with the iPhone 17 for free on them. Just because they saw my TikTok videos. And basically now we're looking at ways to work together. So whether it's through taking me to concerts, and I get to shoot like the concerts on my phone to show like the range their cameras have, or London Fashion Week, we've basically been looking at different ways I can help kind of use my phone to the most and just kind of document that journey. But it's crazy how literally sharing that on TikTok has led to that. But also Twitter can be great as well. That's how that led me to working for Refinery 29 for Fashion Week, because one of the editors, my tweet was retweeted onto their timeline. But same with Instagram as well, where you can have people share your post to their stories. So I've had loads of work coming through there. But I'd say at the moment, TikTok has been probably the greatest and has linked me to a lot of people that like I've admired and have really wanted to work with in terms of that.
Cool. I really like this question from Shay. It's a bit deep, but I'm going to throw it at you. What do you find? When do you find it's appropriate to label yourself as, for example, an artist, a photographer, a writer? So, do you feel like you need to? This is when I'm being a writer. This is when I'm being a photographer. This is when I'm being an artist. Is there any kind of like in your head labeling yourself and what you do?
I think for me, yeah, I'd say like I call myself a creative person overall, but I think with social media, there's kind of come like a stigma with the word creative where people just feel like they throw it around and it's not necessarily means anything. But I think once you kind of have built a body of work, regardless of how big or small, or you feel like you can then kind of go on to share who you are as an artist. And I think from the moment you know where you are, what you want to create, and what that invokes in you, you can call yourself an artist. So I think it took a lot of years for me to feel like I could call myself an artist, because I think it's that comparison is a thief of joy thing where it's like I've not been able to shoot with these big names, or in terms of the gear that I use, it's not as upgraded as other people. But I think from the moment you start producing and sharing your work with the world, from that moment you're an artist, and it shouldn't take like these massive goals for you to feel worthy of that, because again, an artist is an artist at the end of the day. If you are creating, you are an artist, regardless of you have an audience of 10 people or you have an audience of thousands and thousands of people. There are people that are consuming your work and they appreciate it. So yeah, I think it can really be up to you. But I'd say just don't let comparison make you feel like you can't call yourself one. I think from the moment it forms in your head and you do something about it, you are an artist.
Love that. That's a really positive note to maybe end on, actually. I'm just noticing the time. We've been doing this for an hour, and I know you're super busy, Yossy. But I absolutely love everything that you had to say. Your attitude is amazing, just like really, really inspirational. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys at home. That brings us to the end of our 2-day industry events. We've had 6 speakers. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really good numbers, lots of great engagement. I hope you've got loads out of it. So all of you guys will be back to your normal timetables next week, and we will see you then. Thanks again.